Colts Nation, there it is, another week in paradise. One more week to go after a stellar performance by our Indianapolis Colts, 38-10 loss to the New York Giants. And for those of you who don't know, I'm actually based out of Long Island, New York, which means I was at that game at the Meadowlands. And I'll tell you, it's a sad time to be a Colts fan when you have New York Giants fans feeling bad for you. I mean, they have been trash for years. I have never seen a group of people so happy to be in third place in their division. But regardless, I digress. Welcome back, or welcome to the Riding the Bench Coltscast, a podcast made by a Colts fan for Colts fans. I'm your host, Justin Alfero, recording live from my bedroom studio. I'll tell you, one of the perks to making this thing that I did not expect when I put it together is that my room is always clean now because, I can't be looking like a schmuck in front of you guys, right? So if you are a Colts fan and you're looking to help out a Colts fan, shoot the video a like. I would love that. YouTube would love that. We'd all love it, right? It's like a win-win situation. And not for anything, as Colts fans, we could use a little bit more winning right now, right? And of course, I'd be grateful if you'd subscribe if you want weekly Colts content just like this, me, this microphone, you, talking about the Colts. But again, if this ain't the video, it's fine. At the end of the day, I'm just here to entertain you. I'm here to talk to you about the Colts, and I'm here hopefully to make you think about the Colts in a way that's a little different than maybe what other people are putting out there, or at least I hope, right? So today, what I feel like we need to discuss, or what I want to discuss, of course, is not the game. I'm done with the regular season. I said it last week. I'm saying it again. 3 questions that the Colts need to answer this offseason. And I don't want to talk about just draft and coach-related stuff. There's going to be plenty of time to talk about that stuff moving forward, particularly the draft. And as far as coaching goes, quite frankly, I'm not informed enough to be diving in too deep on the potential coaching candidates. Full disclosure. So I kind of want to bring up some questions instead that not everyone is talking about currently, but I think are definitely going to be important as the season ends, as we move into the offseason, and as that stuff goes on. Well, actually, hold on. One, this question right here, everyone's talking about, but I want to touch on it because I think it's a little more nuanced than what meets the eye. So question number 1, what should the Colts do with Matt Ryan? We'll get to that. Number 2, are we trying to win now or are we not? And then 3, to piggyback off of that, given the answer to that question, how are we going to shuffle the deck with this roster? We're going to talk about some of the key resigns, some of the key pieces that we might be trading. Bump, 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 right? Tough time to be a Colts fan, but hopefully I can make it a little bit better for you. So without further ado, let's just get into Matt Ryan. And I want to start just by going over his contract for the 2023 season. So if you don't know, if Matt Ryan, and yes, I'm reading this off of something, if Matt Ryan were to play the whole season, he'll make just over $29 million. Let's call it that. $12 million of that is fully guaranteed no matter what. Now, March 17th is the day, circle it on your calendar, that's the day, because not only will a $7.5 million roster bonus become guaranteed on March 17th, but we're also going to be looking at a little over $7 million of his contract guaranteed again. That means if we don't cut him before the draft, let's say, we're guaranteed to pay Matt Ryan, what is that, 12 plus 7.5 plus another 7. Oh, the math. Basically all of his contract minus $2.5 million, right? In fact, it is. It's $2.5 million will get paid throughout the season next year, game by game by game. So given the guarantees in Matt's contract, it's likely that the Colts, as I just said, are going to release him prior to March 17th. It's going to save us $17 million going into a very, very important offseason. Again, I'm on record saying the most important offseason I've ever seen as a Colts fan in my 18, 19, 20 years of watching them. And if they release Ryan after the season, he's going to cost $18 million against our 2023 cap. Even though it's a significant cap hit for us, that's still, again, saving us that $17 million. And if they trade him, It's only $6 million dead cap, and that'll save us about $29 million. That being said, you tell me, I challenge you. I flip it to you. You're the podcaster now. Who in their right mind is going to trade for Matt Ryan? I believe the answer, off the camera, I believe the answer that we're looking for is nobody, right? So really what it comes down to with Matt Ryan is that there are two things to do. And the one that everyone's talking about is cutting him. And I'm going to tell you, I'm not saying that's the wrong decision. In fact, I'd be inclined to say that's the right decision. But if I were to just come out here and agree with the consensus on everything, we wouldn't really have much to talk about, right? I kind of view my role here as to further the discussion, to create the discussion. So allow me to play devil's advocate as to why we may want to keep Matt Ryan. And then from there, you could bash me in the comments. You could do whatever you want to do. Would we agree that it's likely that we're going to come out and we're going to get a young quarterback in this draft this year? Likely, right? Even when you look at the trade possibilities, there's obviously Derek Carr, which sounded like a much better idea last offseason, let's be real. And then there's the possibility of Jordan Love if Aaron Rodgers were to come back. And he's kind of a young guy. No matter how you look at it, it's likely that there's a young quarterback kind of leading the way for us next year, as it should be. With that, have we stopped to consider how important it is to have some veteran leadership for a young quarterback? And if nothing else, does Matt Ryan fit that bill? And the only reason I bring this up is because, sure, there's much cheaper options to do this. But when you look at the veteran quarterbacks available, we have one of them in Nick Foles, and Lord, I hope he's okay. Obviously, he got hit hard. Thibodeau, right? The snowflakes, the whole deal. I don't want Nick Foles on this roster. Now, Matt Ryan costs a lot of money, for sure. But would I, be in an outrage if we had him to be our backup next year, as well as mentor the quarterback? Is the combination of those two things potentially worth the money if he would be willing to restructure his contract? Maybe, and we'll see if he does it. Maybe he just restructures to the to the guarantees. I don't know. Again, for me, it's hard to picture Matt Ryan, taking $10 million off of his family's plate, off of his own plate. But at the same time, if he doesn't take the cut with us, is there anyone else that's going to be willing to pick him up? So I think to answer that question, Matt Ryan will probably be gone. But maybe there's a path to him being the backup and being the mentor to a young quarterback, particularly in a coaching staff that's in flux. So with that, we have question number 2. Are we trying to win now, or are we not? And I know after a season like this is a question that probably seems a little towards the negative side, right? We got to just tear this thing down. We got to rebuild it. And you know what? Maybe that's right. Again, I'm not saying it's wrong. My role isn't really to say what's right and wrong. My role is to just bring up the discussion. For me, though, presumably, the answer is yes. We are trying to win. What's my evidence? Jim Irsay and kind of how he's done his business. It's just how he's built. And then with that, in support of that side, quite frankly, let's not forget the position we felt we were coming into this season. In terms of the roster that's in place, what exactly has changed? Remember, there were a lot of people who know way more about football than me that were saying that the Colts were going to be a legitimate contender this year. The defense, without question, held up their end of the bargain. Can we agree there? And then when you look at the offense, we still have that core of our offensive line. Now, did they underperform? Yes, but we have Ryan Kelly, we have Braden Smith, and we have Quentin Nelson. Big Q, right? And when you look at that, and you look at the fact that we have some of these key offensive pieces like Michael Pittman, like Jonathan Taylor, Jelani Woods, I really think is a rising star. And then you add in Alec Pierce and then potentially Parris Campbell, who we'll probably get into a little bit later. Obviously, he's in a contract year. But you look, nothing has really changed in terms of that roster that everybody thought could be somewhere. And I just think that we've been a little quick to jump off the ledge. And maybe that's just me being, blindly optimistic. Maybe that's how you take it. But for me, I think there's no reason to blow this thing up. I think we move forward with a young quarterback and continue as we've been going, which, quite frankly, for the most part, has been a very competitive team. I mean, just because you don't make the playoffs doesn't mean you completely stink. It's not like we've been a 3-14 squad for the past 4 years, right? I don't know. That's just me. Maybe I'm alone on that with the Colts. I don't know. So now we have question number 3, and that becomes the roster. So let's say we're going to win now, or let's say we're not going to win now. What's some of the stuff that we have to look at, right? And really, when we talk about the resigns, that's what I'm thinking of, and potentially some key pieces on the roster that we have to keep an eye out for. So as far as resigns go, here's the thing. As I take... it's good stuff. Love that H2O. Bobby Boucher. Shout out to the water boy. Here's the thing. You can't pay everybody. You just can't. There's always going to be someone who isn't getting what they should and ultimately is going to leave. There's been no team ever. You can't find an example in history of a team that's just been able to keep everyone. There's always someone you can't pay. So I know that all the names I'm about to bring up are all people that in a perfect world we'd want to keep, but it's likely that there's an odd man out. When you look at who we've already paid, Quentin Nelson has his contract, Braden Smith has his contract, Ryan Kelly, Shaq Leonard, Mo Ali Cox. And most notably, when you think about the people that we're going to have to pay, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Grover Stewart, all expiring at the end of next season. When you look at the key re-signs this offseason, who is the odd man out? Or is there no odd man out? Maybe you think that, one of the guys next year we let go. I don't know. But I'm going to start 3 guys I'm looking at. Bobby Okereke, Yannick Ngakoue, and Parris Campbell. I'm going to start with Okereke because I think he's like one of the most confusing ones here. I think we've all been pleasantly surprised with how well our linebacking core has looked without the linebacker formerly known as Darius. Correct? Zaire Franklin and Bobby Okereke have given us great reps there. I mean, how many times can I say great? But you do wonder, what is it going to cost to keep Bobby, particularly if we still have Darius Leonard on the roster? Darius Leonard is making a lot of money. A lot. And now you could bring up the idea of trading him, not to, get off track too much. But when you talk about a guy who had an injury-riddled season, you really, why sell him at the low? Does anyone here trade stocks? Why would you sell it, down? When it's red, you're supposed to buy, not sell, right? When the stock's in the red, that's kind of where Darius Leonard is at right now. So when I look at Okereke, I suppose my question is, at what cost? I mean, with the way he's played this season, I can't imagine he doesn't get a nice contract offer from someone. And that's what I'm a little confused about. I guess I don't really have too much more to say about Bobby Okereke other than the fact that I love him. I'd like him to stay, but what will he cost? I do use a pretty awesome website. Is it called SpotRack? I want to shout. Hold on, let me look it up on my laptop because I want to shout out the website. They do really good work. Yeah, so SpotRack.com is an awesome website that you could go. I go there basically to see everything with contracts, see market value, so on and so forth. That being said, it looks like their contract valuation, their market value on Bobby Okereke isn't quite there yet. It says he's only going to make $2.3 million on the open market. That doesn't sound right to me. I think he's going to demand a bit more than that. Now, you look at a Yannick Ngakoue. This is a guy that leads us in sacks. If there is just one of these 3 between Okereke, Ngakoue, and Campbell that we need to keep, for me, and it hurts to say because I love them all, we got to keep Ngakoue. I mean, what a monster. Don't you feel like the trade with Rock Ya-Sin, don't you feel like for that to be a win, we'd have to retain Ngakoue going forward? Again, leads us in sacks. The problem, likely going to demand around $15 million. The Colts right now going into this offseason, before contracts come off the books, I think we're around 10 or 11 with cap space. Call it $25 to $30 million. I don't have the exact number in front of me. $15 million is quite a bit of that. And the question is, if you resign Ngakoue, going back to Matt Ryan, you can't keep them both, right? And if I have to choose between the two of them, I'm going with Ngakoue. So we have to ask Ngakoue, Okereke. Is it going to just be one of the two? Daye Ndengbo? Do we feel like he's like a replacement for Ngakoue? I don't know. It becomes a tough situation. It really does. And then third, the one that is closest to my heart, Parris Campbell. And I'm going to tell you right now, I think financially, it makes great sense to keep Parris Campbell. My only question is, does Parris want to stick around? And in me asking that, I'm not implying that the answer is no, but instead just looking at the state of affairs in Indianapolis. You know, when Nyheim Hines, right before he was traded to Buffalo, he had a quote that I thought was very telling, and I'm going to paraphrase it. Something along the lines of, you look at the Titans, they've had Ryan Tannehill since I've got here, yet this team, every single year we have to reset. And I'd imagine as someone who's catching the football, that gets very, very aggravating. And Parris Campbell is a guy that the Colts never gave up on, and I think he knows that and appreciates that. The question becomes, is there going to be someone else willing to take a chance on him financially to give him more than, I don't know, $2, $3, $4, $5 million a year? Is there going to be someone that's going to give Parris Campbell like that DJ Chark Lions Prove It contract, which I think was like $9 million? Is someone going to do that for him? Or is he going to be in a situation where the Colts are the absolute best opportunity for him to cash in on himself, to bank on himself? I think what would be likely for Parris Campbell, the way I would be approaching it, I'd be giving him one more year to prove it, unless he wants the security. One more year to prove it, and then from there, you put some incentives in there if he has a monster season, and then there you are with Parris Campbell. But again, my biggest question with Parris is he going to want to stay, given what he's experienced here so far? You have teams like Green Bay who might be interested. And when I say might be, I'm just speculating. I'm just talking about teams that need wide receivers. Can't think of any others. Didn't have it in the notes, right? So those are the three key re-signs for me. And there's people like Matt Pryor who, if we were to re-sign, needless to say, the city of Indianapolis would be in shambles. There's people like him. You know, there's people like EJ Speed, right? Rodney McLeod, who's really given us some good work this season, who I'd like to have back for another year. But I look at the three that I said, Okereke, Ngakoue, and Parris Campbell as the guys. And then now we go to the key pieces that will be traded. And let me just start with the disclaimer that I'm about to change pace from a take that I had. I believe a guy like Kenny Moore, who there was a ton of trade talk about coming into the season, and my take at the time was that I believe in taking care of your guys. I thought we had to pay him. I also thought we didn't stink. So you see how things change. I truly believe that there's a value in paying the guys that have done well by you. I think not only does it set a good message to those who are in the organization in terms of players, I think it sets a good tone for those who are potentially looking at you as a suitor for the next stop in their career. I think when you pay a guy who's done right by you, it just shows that you're an organization that acts in good faith. And that's what I wanted us to do with Kenny when he was holding out for his contract. But now I look in the game he missed against the Vikings, and spare me the second half, I know this. That secondary performed really, really well against a team that's obviously been throwing all over everybody this year in the first half with no Kenny Moore whatsoever. And you do wonder, maybe Kenny Moore can be packaged in some sort of trade with draft picks to improve draft capital in a spot. Maybe we have to trade up to get our quarterback. Starting to get a little nervous that at that 5 slot, that 4 slot, you might have the 2 best guys already gone. Kenny Moore is a guy that I kind of expect to be on the move this offseason. And as far as guys that I feel like we should, I hate to do that. I love Kenny Moore. I do. But, you know, it's a damn business. And even though I'm not running it, I'm playing the role right now. Kenny Moore is a guy that I think we'd likely be wise to trade and then maybe draft a young corner in the draft and then sign someone to supplement it. Again, we did pretty well without him in limited sample size this year, and that's what I'm looking at there. So with that kind of wraps up this episode about what we kind of could look at this offseason. And of course, week after week after week after week through the offseason is my goal to not miss a week. I'm going to be here talking about the offseason. And maybe sometimes there's not going to be a story, but I assure you I'm going to find something to talk about. And if you're interested in being a part of that journey and hearing me talk about the Colts going forward, now's the time to hit that subscribe button. And if you haven't already, you shoot a like if you can. If not, I'm glad you stuck around this long. I believe the retention time helps me as well. I hope that I've been able to entertain you. My name is Justin Ofero. You have just listened to the 4th episode of the Riding the Bench Colts Cast.